to get in on that conversation, 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Deacon Gradanis is the creator of the Decent Film Guide. You can find it at decentfilms.com. He's the film critic for the National Catholic Register, and he's a member of the New York Film Critics Circle. He co-hosts the cable TV show Real Faith, and that's with two E's, on Net TV with film critic David DeSerto. And he's got a BFA in media arts from the School of Visual Arts in New York. So he's one of those very, very fancy New Yorkers with their degrees and insight into culture. Deacon Stephen Gradanis, thanks for being with us. Was that not enough?
Thank you, Cy. It's good to be here.
That you didn't find that description apt? You're a fancy... but wait,
a lot of us are a lot less fancy than you might think.
Oh, okay, all right. And your diocese is actually the Archdiocese of Newark, across the river from New York City.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So you saw some films in 2018, I'm assuming, because I read your column in the National Catholic Register, which I highly recommend to people. Read Deacon Gradanis's column. And some were good, some were bad, but overall it struck me that you seem to think this was a pretty good year for films.
What I go by is how hard I have to work to come up with my list of the top films of the year. So every year I come up with 30 films. There's my top 10, and then my 10 runners up, and then my 10 honorable mentions. And some years I really I never run out of movies, but some years I have to go further afield. There's a lot more foreign films. There's a lot more indies. And then other years that seem to come a little easier. And this was one of the easier years. So that to me makes it a good year.
Oh, very, very good. So I imagine, many of our listeners are members of families. As a matter of fact, almost everyone I've ever met has been a member of a family. But lots of families out there listening, and you know the complaints about family movies. They have been made for years and years and years against Hollywood. Maybe that tide is turning a bit. How do we do for family movies this year?
Compared to the previous year, 2018 was a really good year for family films. The previous year was just not a good year. There was not much to get excited about. But this year we started out with a really strong film, Paddington 2, which I took my whole family to the theater to see. And that's an expensive proposition these days, especially when you have 7 kids. We all fell in love with it, and I was sure it was going to be my favorite family film of the year. It's a movie that celebrates gentleness and kindness in a way that almost comes off as a rebuke to the crassness and freneticism of typical Hollywood family fare. But then I was surprised because we saw something that bumped it out of that top space. We saw Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which is just beyond brilliant. This is an animated superhero family adventure. It's in theaters right now, and I highly recommend everyone listening to go see it. It's from the makers of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and the Lego Movie, and it's just as nuts as both of those, but with a lot more heart. It's a father-son story. It's a coming-of-age story. It's not only my favorite family film of the year, but my favorite superhero action movie as well.
Wow. So big kudos for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I saw a few minutes of Paddington Bear. Hugh Grantham was in it.
Did you see? Okay, so you did see Paddington 2. That's the one.
Paddington 2. Yeah,
he is hilarious.
Isn't he brilliant?
He's brilliant in this. He's doing a kind of send up of his own screen persona, but also of like actorly pretensions in general. And he gets to do a whole range of characters. And, Nicole Kidman was in the first Paddington, and I think she was a little more malicious and a little scarier than she needed to be. And for a film so gentle that you can watch it with even the youngest children, Hugh Grant really strikes the right note in Paddington 2.
Again, 888-318-7884, our number. We're talking with Deacon Stephen Gradanis, the film reviewer for the National Catholic Register, among other duties that he has, including being a deacon in the Archdiocese of Newark. I did not see Ralph Breaks the Internet. What was it called? Ralph Breaks the Internet? Yeah, Ralph Breaks the Internet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What'd you think of it?
This is the sequel to Wreck-It Ralph, and it's it's very creative. It goes far beyond the original film, which I thought was kind of a color by numbers Hollywood story of accepting differences and accepting who you are. Ralph Breaks the Internet kind of goes into trickier emotional and thematic territory. It deals with some complex themes around friendship and loyalty and kind of possessive behavior. It's the story. If you didn't see the first one, it's the story of video game avatars who have a life behind the screen. So it's a little bit like Toy Story,
Yeah.
where the toys come to life. Only in this case, it's characters like Pac-Man and Cuber and so forth. So Wreck-It Ralph is a video game villain, but he's really kind of a nice guy, and he's friends with a racing character named Vanellope, and they break out from their 8-bit world into the wider world of the internet. And so it explores all kinds of aspects of modern online life and the horribleness of online comments. And it's a very interesting document about the digital age that we live in. And I thought it was really interesting.
Okay, so the one of among the kids movies that I did see and I enjoyed it was Incredibles 2.
Yeah, this now where I thought Wreck-It Ralph was, I thought that Ralph Breaks the Internet went beyond its predecessor. I think that The Incredibles, the original 2006 Incredibles, Brad Bird's family film masterpiece, I think it's one of the greatest animated films ever made, one of the best family films ever made. It explores the um, the family dynamics and marriage and family in some really sophisticated and interesting ways. It's a movie that really celebrates and even um, lionizes family life and married
Yeah.
life, but also really explores some of the complexities and some of the difficulties in a way that is both sophisticated enough for adults, but also emotionally accessible to children. The sequel, Incredibles 2, I think is not as good as the original, but it's still much better than the vast majority of Hollywood family films. Brad Bird is very talented, and he's really invested a lot of heart into these characters.
I see what you're saying about the first one. It's a movie that made the family itself the superhero, really. Instead of it being an individual, it was the family unit, which is really an impressive thing to do.
I have to say, there's a movie in theaters right now this weekend, Glass from M. Night Shyamalan. It's a sequel, turns out to be a sequel in a trilogy that he began 19 years ago with Unbreakable, about Bruce Willis as a father and a husband who also turns out to be a superhero. And in that movie, he's on the verge of leaving his family. And I was very disappointed in that film for a lot of reasons, and one of them was that it really didn't connect the father's hero identity with his responsibility to his wife and child, that he has a duty to be a hero to them. And this is where I think The Incredibles is really so successful, is that it recognizes that your first duty is to be a hero to your family. It's to be there as a man, to be there for your wife and for your children. And in this film, it explores Bob's responsibility to be there to support his wife when she has an opportunity to step outside the home, to explore her talents and her ability to achieve something in the wider world. I think it's not as successful
Yeah.
in realizing those themes as the first film was, because Bob doesn't ever have that moment of clarity in this film that he has in the first film, where he realizes that he's been kind of a jerk in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it doesn't. Don't you think too that there's? I don't know if it's a trope, but it's certainly a kind of pattern in Hollywood movies that whenever dad is left with the kids, the series of disasters that ensues is meant really to applaud mothers. It's meant to say moms do incredible stuff. And so I mean, I know that there's the thing about the bumbling dad and the Homer Simpson syndrome and all that, but I don't mind that. I think that I kind of liked that in this movie, that it's a struggle to take care of kids.
That's a really good point, and I appreciate that twist that you put on it. I also, though, I want to applaud Brad Bird for not making Bob Parr completely useless
Yeah.
as a house husband.
Right.
He does struggle, but he also has his little victories. He gets on top of things. He succeeds. He stays up at night and he learns
Yeah.
Dash's new math so that he can actually help him with his homework.
Right.
And so he does have those moments of pulling things together. Brad Bird is
That
never going to go totally for the stereotype in that way.
excellent point. Excellent point. I love the line too. This I won't get it right, but something about when did they change math or why did they change math?
Yes.
Like,
Well, that's kind of a reference to the fact that The Incredibles exists in a temporally ambiguous perpetual 1960s, right?
yeah.
So it's got like that 1960s James Bond vibe. You'll notice that there are no cell phones, there are no flat screen televisions. It's has that chronological, and the attitudes in it are a little bit set in that cultural context as well. But
Yeah.
so
Uh,
that's what he's doing there.
I got it. Deacon Stephen Graydonis is our guest. We're going to go through all of the best movies of 2018 with Deacon Graydonis this hour. 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. Before I go to a break, Deacon, so among the family movies, then it sounds like Paddington 2 and Spider-Man are your superstars of the year. Like go see these movies or get these movies and see them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these are movies that are not only great entertainment for the family, but really celebrate the family in a way that goes above and beyond even better Hollywood films like Incredibles 2. I mean, all three of these are really good, but Paddington 2 has this gentle spirit, and Spider-Man 2 has a father-son, or Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse has a father-son relationship unlike practically anything that I've seen in Hollywood. Only Finding Nemo really rivals it for that father-son relationship.
Deacon Stephen Graydonis, our guest, 888-31-TRUTH, our number. You know January is pro-life month because you can tell that it's pro-life month. As a matter of fact, you can tell that today is the day of the Walk for Life in Washington, D.C., because if you turn on the news, they're very busy ignoring it. But while we're in the midst of pro-life month, we want to make sure that you get all the pro-life materials you might need for yourself or for your group, for your family, and everything that's in the pro-life category here at Catholic Answers is on sale for $5 an item, whether it's a book, a DVD, a movie, anything. Just go to shop.catholic.com and visit the $5 pro-life category to get yours.
There's only one. Catholic Answers Live.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
I'm Jeanette DeMello, Editor-in-Chief of the National Catholic Register and co-host of Register Radio with Matthew Bunson. Join us every week as we talk with the Register's expert writers and editors about the news you need to know and offer authentic Catholic insights on the important stories that impact your life. Register Radio, every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern, here on EWTN Global Catholic Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. It is Friday, and of course, that means a huge Friday show. Second hour, Jimmy Akin, super top secret guest coming in for the game show. This hour, Deacon Stephen Graydonis is here with us to work through the best films of 2018, and it feels good to kind of say some positive things about the media. It's our usual position, as you might guess, is sometimes a bit more harsh. I want to ask you, because we were just talking about the media's concerted efforts over 46 years to ignore the Walk for Life. But there was there was a movie that tried very hard to pierce, I think, the public consciousness regarding abortion this year, and in some cases was successful. I'd like to get your take on it. The movie Gosnell?
Yes. Gosnell, the subtitle is The Trial of America's Biggest Serial Killer, directed by Nick Searcy and starring Dean Cain, among other people.
And a good pro-life movie, a good movie, where do we place it?
So faith-based films often fall into a trap of first painting everything very black and white and really kind of pitching the movie entirely to the faithful, preaching to the choir. And I have to give Gosnell credit for not making a number of mistakes in this regard. First of all, it finds an angle on the subject of the trial of Gosnell, who ran this house of horrors in Philadelphia. I mean, I'm sure that many of our listeners remember, as I do, following the news as this story was breaking. And it took a while for it to break because, and this is the thing that the movie hits really hard, nobody wanted to cover it. You know, there was a huge story here, and there was a huge atrocities going on, but because it was abortion, the media was very hands off, law enforcement was very hands off, which is how this horror show went on for as long as it did. The health inspections were being done and so forth. And the movie dramatizes that very well. And so the movie's angle, and I think this is a shrewd move on the part of the filmmakers, is not abortion is bad, but we need to be honest in dealing with abortion. We need to look at it. We need to be willing to acknowledge what's going on. And I think that's a smart move. The filmmakers make some other smart moves. It's a film that's made with some craft and some skill. And Dean Cain, I think, is better in this film as the police detective who kind of stumbles onto this. There's almost a kind of an opposite of the I forgot what I was going to say there for a second.
Oh, that's right. So Dean Cain stumbles upon the case.
Yeah.
As a journalist, or
no, he's a police detective, but he's not. They're not looking for this. So this is something that they kind of stumble onto, and they're forced to engage with it. There are some aspects in which I think the movie doesn't really succeed as well as it could have, particularly in the courtroom drama. Courtroom drama is something that's hard to do well because there's really a temptation as a filmmaker to lay out the case that you want the audience to accept the same way as a lawyer is trying to get the jury to accept their case. And so you don't really make the opposite case as well as the people who are really advocating for that position should make. And for me as a critic, for me as a viewer, I feel like I want to feel like both lawyers are trying as hard as possible to persuade me of what their point of view is. And when I don't feel that way, then I feel like the movie is, as I said, preaching to the choir. And that's where I think that Gosnell could have done a better job than it did.
Fair enough. We're going to keep working our way through the best movies of the year 2018, but we're going to try to get some calls in here as well. Kevin in Des Moines, Iowa is listening on Iowa Catholic Radio. Kevin, your question for Deacon Stephen Greydanis.
Yes. Hi, guys. I actually had two questions. One of them was, actually, to begin with, I actually really enjoy your website and enjoy your reviews before we go anywhere.
Thank you.
But I was wondering why, yes, of course. I was wondering why you had so much praise, I guess, for Ralph Breaks the Internet. I saw it, and I know that you said that you thought the first one wasn't as good, but I saw that, and I actually had an opposite reaction. I do think that some points that you pointed out, like how the Internet can be quite nasty with its comments, were a good part, but it seemed like it kind of lost its soul a little bit by not having nearly any of the characters from the first movie, as well as kind of just rushing through the end at the point where Penelope was kind of not telling Ralph anything about what she was planning to do, but at the same time, Ralph should have been overhearing. And the second question I had was, have you ever considered for your website delving into other media like video games and such? I'm just curious about that.
Okay, thank you. Let me answer the second question first. I get a lot of queries from people who say, are you aware of anyone who does what you do for video games or for books and other media and so forth? And I really don't. I would love to see someone who knows those worlds try to engage them the way that I'm doing them here. It's not something I would be interested in featuring at Decent Films, but I would certainly be happy to point people to useful resources in that regard, anything that I was aware of. And I have I do know some people who've done a little bit of that, but not specifically video games right now. I don't know anyone who's doing that work now. For Ralph Breaks the Internet, here's where I come at it. Wreck-It Ralph, to me, is a movie that exists well within the parameters of what many other Hollywood family films have done. It's a very familiar story about a character who is ostracized, who is somehow different, and then we learn that she's being wrongfully ostracized, and that her differences really make her special, and that she's much more special than we thought. And those aren't bad themes, but they're so familiar. What I liked about Wreck-It Ralph, or about Ralph Breaks the Internet, is that it goes beyond a lot of these familiar themes, and it's really about who we are today as people living in a digital world. There are virtual metaphors in the film about how the internet works and how we interact with the internet, about how we use search engines, about that desire to get that next piece of information, or about the distraction of online ads, about some of the dark places on the internet, as well as, it's really about our foibles. It's about how we live today, and about how online relationships change the way that people interact, about the way that men and women interact. There's kind of an analogy between the way that Ralph and Vanellope interact, and some of the ways that online dating and online relationships can become introduce new kinds of problems into human behavior. So I found it interesting because it made me think about things that an average Hollywood family film would not make me think of. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'll definitely have to contemplate that. That was something I hadn't considered, honestly, so I definitely appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right, sure.
Thanks very much for that call. If you 888-318-7884 is the number. If you have some comment or question about the movies of 2018 for Deacon Stephen Greydonis, 888-318-7884. So let's move into the action films. Good year, bad year. What'd you make of this year for action films?
I think it was a pretty good year. There were a number of action movies, and I have to say I enjoy well-crafted action. Two of the movies that I'm most looking forward to seeing on the big screen this year are a couple of Jackie Chan films in the Police Story series that are coming back to the big screen and coming to home video from Criterion, and he is the absolute master. But we have somebody in Hollywood who's no slouch, and that's Tom Cruise. And his Mission Impossible movies are just a national treasure. And the latest one, Fallout, this conclusion to what is kind of a sequel trilogy, I think, he's first of all, he's working harder than any two Hollywood action stars half his age,
right,
to entertain us. And the stunts are amazing. But more than that, the director, Christopher McQuarrie, who, by the way, has just signed to do two new Mission Impossible movies back to back, he's crafted his two Mission Impossible movies today around a thesis. And the thesis in this film is that Tom Cruise's character, Ethan Hunt, is a super spy who cares as much about one life as about millions of lives. For him, the only acceptable level of collateral damage is 0. Now, we're talking about a genre in which human life is often cheap, and action stars often shrug at even sizable amounts of collateral damage of even innocent people. I kind of winced through one of the disposable Dwayne Johnson movies that I saw this year, Skyscraper, because a lot of security guards are just blown away, and he's just kind of shrugging it off. And I'm like, these are people. They had families, and there's a moment in Mission Impossible Fallout where a random person just wanders into a very dangerous scene, and the scene comes to a halt because for Hunt, she must not be shot, and he's got to, it doesn't matter what he has to do to save her life.
Yeah.
And that kind, and then there's also, he's put in a moral dilemma of, is he going to allow police officers to be killed in order to prevent a bad guy from getting away? And for a movie to care that much about the lives of anonymous characters, I think is something that you don't see in a lot of action movies.
I'm looking forward to it then, because well, we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. I got a couple follow-up questions for you about Tom Cruise and Mission Impossible Fallout, and also get your take on other fine or maybe not so fine action movies this year. Deacon Stephen Greydonis, our guest. Our number 888-318-7884. Any question at all about the movies is welcome.
Catholic Answers Live.
A generation ago, Christian parents didn't have to worry about how to explain transgenderism to their 9-year-old or help their teenager deal with mockery at school for believing in traditional marriage. But today, as our culture's moral center continues to fly apart, and with every form of deviance publicly aired and celebrated, we have no choice but to equip our kids to understand about such issues. In Made This Way, How to Prepare Kids to Face Today's Tough Moral Issues, Layla Miller and Trent Horn give parents the crucial tools and techniques to form children with the understanding they need, appropriate to their age and maturity level, to meet the world's challenges. Silence can no longer be an option. If we're not teaching our children how to understand tough moral issues, then the world will. Read Made This Way and learn how to give your kids a firm foundation on which to build a life of moral clarity and happiness. Order your copy of Made This Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or logging on to the shop at Catholic.com.
Wouldn't it be great to have a book to give to anyone to explain exactly why Catholics believe what we believe? The good news is that now there is. Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking new resource by apologist Trent Horn. That one book you can hand to anyone as a starting point for helping them find their way into or back to the practice of the Catholic faith. Don't miss out on the most important, life-changing book to come along in years. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
I'm Gloria Purvis.
And I'm Deacon Harold Burke-Sivers. The Morning Glory team talks about the pro-life legacy of Martin Luther King.
Monday morning, 7 Eastern. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. We got to go faster. We got to get through all the best movies of 2018. And I'm not going to get you bogged down, but we were talking about Mission Impossible Fallout, Tom Cruise's efforts. The man is an amazing person. Did he fly on the outside of an airplane in this movie? Or was that just the last one?
That was the last one.
Yeah.
He's done in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, the movie that he made with Brad Bird. That was I think the first one where I noticed him going to these real extremes with the stunts. He wanted to go to the real Burj Khalifa for this scene, this tallest building in the world, where he's running around on the outside of the building, and then in the follow up. Rogue Nation, he's hanging on the outside of the jet, and that's just a great stunt, and it's very well filmed.
Yeah.
And in this movie, he does a halo jump, high altitude, low opening of the parachute. He does a lot of other things. There's a great fist fight staged in a bathroom with Henry Cavill from he's the Superman from the new DC films.
Oh yeah. Right.
There's a lot of great action in this film.
All right. Any other great action films that you can point to this year?
I should just briefly mention Black Panther. I also really enjoyed Ant-Man and the Wasp. Black Panther, an important film for its exploration of what's called Afrofuturism, for being the first mainstream superhero movie with an almost all-black cast. Ant-Man and the Wasp, some great visuals. We should also give a shout-out to not exactly an action movie, but in kind of in the neighborhood, A Quiet Place from husband-wife team John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. It's really more of a thriller horror than an action film, but it's very pro-family. It's even pro-life. This is a rare mainstream Hollywood film that celebrates the complementarity of masculine and feminine without necessarily being rigid about gender roles. We're hearing a lot in the news right now about toxic masculinity and what masculinity really means. And this is a movie that has considerable masculinity on display as well as femininity, and these are not cross-examined or problematized in quite the way that they are in a lot of Hollywood films. And I think this is a very complicated discussion, and there are a lot of things we can say, but I think there's something to be said for a movie like this that really celebrates these virtues.
How great. It is a complicated, and we shouldn't oversimplify it. I'm just not buying Gillette razors anymore. But other than that, okay, so how about documentaries? How do we do with documentaries? I know the thing about documentaries is I feel like in the older days, not too long ago, people didn't watch documentaries, but it seems like with digital media, the thing that has benefited more than anything is documentaries, because people can just get them and watch them now.
Documentaries are real movies, and sometimes they're the best made movies of the year. And I think it's fantastic that we have much more exposure to documentaries. We were talking about what a great year it was for family films. Let's not forget, Science Fair is a documentary. It's also a family film. It's about kids from all over the world competing for a global science fair prize. And there's some really interesting projects. A lot of people enjoyed Free Solo. It's a rock climbing documentary about Alex Honnold, the first person to climb up El Capitan without any ropes or security, any kind of special equipment, or without any partner. There's many others I could mention very quickly. Three Identical Strangers, Shirkers, Minding the Gap, Hale County This Morning, This Evening. All of these are great films, but there are two for our listeners that I particularly want to highlight.
All right.
And those are Wim Wenders' Pope Francis, A Man of His Word, and my favorite documentary of the year, Morgan Neville's Won't You Be My Neighbor, about Mr. Rogers.
Okay, so tell us about the Pope. Wim Wenders made a Pope Francis documentary, huh? So what do you make of the documentary? Do you recommend it because it's a good documentary? Or it's a topic that we'd be interested in as Catholics, or what direction is your commendation coming from?
I can't recommend a movie unless I appreciate both on some level what it's saying, but also how it says it. So, yes, I think Wenders finds a really interesting angle on presenting certain aspects of Pope Francis's message. I don't want to give the impression that I don't have any criticisms of the film at all. But what he does is he connects Pope Francis's message to his name and thus to his namesake, Francis of Assisi.
Okay.
And so he explores Francis's messages with regard to environmentalism and interreligious dialogue and other topics. I think it's a somewhat limited presentation because he really kind of focuses on the aspects of Pope Francis's message that would go over well with non-believers, with secularists, which is fine. I think we should do that. We should present those aspects of his teaching. But then, you come to some of his, so for instance, there's very little sense of a theological vision. We don't hear much about Jesus at all, nothing about hell or Satan, which this Pope has really, hit on very hard. He talks about these topics a lot. So
it's got a kind of a selective feel to it.
What I said in my review, I think I said this in my review, is that there's nothing in this movie that would make any of the members of U2 squirm if they were watching it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's a good summary. That's a very clear image.
But having said that, a lot of Francis's message does come across in the film, and you really get that sense. And this is one way in which these two documentaries and these two figures, Pope Francis and Mr. Rogers, have something in common, which is their ability to address a crowd and to connect in a very personal way with one person. So many people have had that experience that they feel like Francis, like Mr. Rogers, is talking to them, not to everyone, but to them specifically. And that is a powerful gift that both of these documentaries really celebrate.
Well, Mr. Rogers was talking to me. I can remember that very clearly as a child. He was talking directly to me. I didn't ever understand why he was changing his shoes. That part I didn't know what that was about. But I'm so glad. I want to get that one and watch it because it just received so much attention. And this guy is a remarkable guy, Mr. Rogers.
And the film highlights the fact that for Rogers, it really was like that. One of the actors on his show, the man who plays Officer Clemens, is African American who played a police officer and admitted that he had some misgivings about playing the role of a police officer. But there's a very special episode that the documentary really hits on where the two of them sit at a wading pool and they soak their bare feet together, singing "There Are So Many Ways to Say I Love You," and that scene in the 1960s really had a powerful cultural significance.
Yeah.
And Clemens has talked about how on their last show together, Mr. Rogers was delivering that line that he always said about making every day a special day just by being you. And he looked right at Clemens when he said it. And Clemens afterwards came up to him and said, "Were you talking to me?" And Rogers' response was, "I've been talking to you for years, but you heard me today."
Oh, wow. Wow. I imagine that's what the Lord says to a lot of us. Okay, so the name of the documentary then, the Mr. Rogers documentary?
Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Won't You Be My Neighbor? All right, Tim in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, listening on Real Presence Radio. You are up next. Your question or comment for Stephen Greydonis.
Hi, thanks. I've got a comment on the Ari Aster's Hereditary horror film from last year. I thought it had some really interesting things to say about the nature and source of evil and how that can be transmitted through relationships. But I did feel a little put off by the ending, without giving anything away, just kind of ending in total hopelessness and despair. But then once I began to hear other reviews of it, and I bristled at the fact that people were put off by the source of the evil being revealed, and I began to come to the film's defense, kind of understanding that evil is real and not just, a figment of imagination.
Yeah.
So what would you think about that?
I thought that Hereditary had some very interesting ideas, and there's certainly some, and very well executed in some ways. I was not as impressed by it as some critics were, but I appreciate the points that you make. One of the things that I really liked about the film is a line that comes at the very end where the character says, "We repudiate or we reject the Holy Trinity." So the movie places itself in a Christian theological context and then repudiates that. I don't think that a movie that ends in despair and the triumph of evil is necessarily at least for the characters, is necessarily a bad thing, depending on how they get to that place. One of my favorite horror movies of all time, and a movie that I think is a great film from a Christian point of view, is The Witch, a film that really puts schism and separation of oneself from the Christian community as a kind of the original sin that leads to downfall and that leads to damnation. So I can understand why people would be put off by such a dark ending, but for me, I think it can be powerfully redemptive. In the case of Hereditary, I thought that those ideas didn't pay out quite as well as the filmmaker wanted them to. So it's a question of interpretation. For me, it didn't work quite as well.
Okay, Tim.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, and I thought what was put off, what some critics were put off by was the fact that they revealed, in invoking the Trinity, that the evil was real, and that's what I wanted to defend about it was that was a good way to end it. So, and it's almost the antithesis of, say, The Exorcist, because the family never, actually reached out for spiritual help, and the result was quite different. So, thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you very, very much, Tim, for that call. 888-318-7884 is our number. A whole bunch more of the best movies of the year 2018 for us to work through with Deacon Steve and Great Honest, but we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
Got questions? Visit us today at Catholic.com.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Divine Intimacy Radio.
When you engage with the wisdom of saints this way, it stokes the fires of God in our hearts, encourages us, strengthens us, and gives us wisdom to deal with the difficulties of life. It also gives us wisdom that allows us to rise above all of the junk, to live with joy and peace in the midst of even the most difficult circumstances.
Divine Intimacy Radio, Sunday, 6:30 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 11 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Talk with Deacon Stephen Great Honest about the best movies of the year 2018. We've hit some of them. How did religious movies do this year?
This was a really amazing year for movies with religious themes. The really high-profile ones were Paul Schrader's First Reformed. It's just a very difficult film with a substantial religious pedigree. It gives shout outs to Diary of a Country Priest and to a lot of other prior films. Ethan Hawke plays a tortured pastor who struggles with the fate of the world and where things are going. Very dark film in some ways. For me, it had a special resonance because my father was a Reformed pastor before coming into the church 2 years after Suzanne and I did. And Paul Schrader comes from that same Christian Reformed background that my family comes from.
Well, so you felt that he captured it then?
I do. And I think that the ending of the film in particular is ambiguous and up for debate. I choose to interpret it as a prayer and as some kind of reaching out for redemption. But different people can interpret it different ways. One of the most bizarre and exhilarating films of the year from a religious perspective is a movie that is a musical about Joan of Arc. It's based on the pre- and post-conversion writings of the Catholic poet Charles Péguy, which has been turned by the filmmaker Bruno Dumont into a wild hard rock musical, Jeanette, the Childhood of Joan of Arc. You can watch this. I think it's on Amazon Prime right now. Jeanette, the Childhood of Joan of Arc. Amazing theological vision in this film.
Oh, okay. I'm looking forward to that. I'm a huge fan of Joan of Arc. So, all right. I'm looking for. What did you think about Paul, Apostle of Christ?
I liked it. Jim Caviezel plays Saint Luke, and it's a look at the last days of the Apostle Paul and at the circumstances in which the Book of Acts first. It's kind of the gestation, the early gestation of the Book of Acts. It also explores the early Christian community and their struggles with persecution and various ways of potentially dealing with it. For as faith-based films go, I think it's one of the better and more interesting ones.
Chris in Tennessee is next. Chris is listening on the Catholic Answers app. Chris, thanks for downloading the app onto your phone. Your question for Deacon Stephen Great Honest.
Hi, this question is inspired by a review that you did in, I think, early February of 2018 for a film called Call Me By Your Name. And
yes.
I'm not necessarily here to go over the comments that you had about the film, but
yes.
given that it is gratuitously homoerotic, where I want to ask you, as a Catholic film critic, where
yes.
would you for lack of better terms, draw a line and say, this is not a film that Catholics should go and see? Like, what sort of attributes or topics would a film need to go over for you to say, like, guys, I really wanted to give you a review of this film, but it's just not something you should see?
Okay. There are two questions there. One of them is, where would I draw the line about a film I'm even going to see and review? And then where am I going to draw the line about what films I would recommend? So Call Me By Your Name is a film that I would not ordinarily see and that I would definitely not recommend. The only reason I saw it was that it was nominated for Best Picture, and as part of my work with Real Faith, we review all of the Best Picture nominees, so I was obligated to see it. I appreciated certain aspects of the production. I did not like the film. I do not recommend the film. And so I do think it's important, though, when a film has achieved a certain level in the public discussion, to be able to offer some perspective on it, on what it does, what it potentially does well for the people who like it, and therefore what is the possible ways that, people can be seduced by this film, that it can sell us on whatever message it is that it's trying to sell us on. Other movies that I would just not see at all, there are many. They are legion. For instance, this year, among the many, many movies that I didn't see was the 50 Shades finale. I have not seen any of those films. So, when a movie has, I think when over-the-top offensive content is the main selling point of a film, there's probably no reason to engage it critically. With a film like Call Me By Your Name, although there is certainly an offensive and a morally poisonous message to the film, the movie explores human experiences in a sufficiently compelling way that the film is powerful for many people. And so because we have to live in a world where people think this way, I think it's important to understand what that film is doing, and that's why I think it's probably a good idea for films like that to be reviewed from a Catholic point of view.
Okay, so that answers my question about that particular film. But is there something that a film might necessarily have that you would say and let's, for the sake of argument, say that it's not nominated for anything, nor are any of the actors. Like, maybe it's got a cult following, like 50 Shades, but there are obviously no nominations. Is there something that you would say, like, I'm not even going to review it?
Yeah, there are many things, and I would take it on a case-by-case basis. There are many films that I would just put, that I do put off limits for me, for many reasons. And like I said, if some kind of offensive or objectionable content is the main selling point, or if it crosses a certain line, like, into, for instance, if there are sex scenes where the actors are really engaging in sex, that would be something that I would just, cross the line off completely, even if it wasn't explicit. And obviously if it is explicit, then so much the more so.
Chris, thank you very, very much for the call. Felipe in Spring, Texas, you are up next. Your question for Deacon Stephen Greydonis.
Thank you. Hi, Deacon. Thank you for taking my call.
Hi, Felipe.
I would like you comment in the movie Rome or Roma that gave the prize of the best documental a couple of weeks ago. I was invited to my wife to watch in Netflix, and I got was a terrible movie for me. I just stopped to watch in the first 30 minutes. And my wife said that she finished, but that was not a good movie at all.
We're talking about Roma?
Have your comment, please.
Okay, Felipe, thank you. We're talking about Roma. It's gotten a lot of attention, this movie Roma.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
fair enough.
From Alfonso Cuarón. It's a Mexican film. My group, the New York Film Critics Circle, named it the best movie of the year, and a lot of other critics groups are also highly acclaiming it. I did enjoy it very much, not as much as some, but I thought it was a very well-crafted film about the director Alfonso Cuarón's childhood, growing up in Mexico City in a middle-class Mexican family with a maid. The maid is a central character. And the movie is really about the family's experiences at a time when the men in the lives of these women are abandoning them. So the father, reflecting what actually happened in Alfonso Cuarón's real experience, the father abandons his wife and family, and at the same time, a man who has gotten the maid pregnant abandons her in a very cruel and vicious way. And so the movie explores the relationship between the maid and the family, and so it's about class, and it's about the relationship of the sexes, and it's about Mexican politics in the late 1960s and early 1970s. And it's just amazingly shot. It's such a gorgeous film to watch. And so I think there are a lot of things that Cuarón does that are valuable and interesting. I'm sorry that you didn't connect with the film, but I thought it's very well done.
Was it shot in Spanish or English?
It's shot in multiple languages, mostly Spanish.
Oh, okay.
And there's a tiny bit of English, and then also the Mixtec language, which is it's an indigenous language that is spoken by the maid and by some other characters.
We're going to say thank you, Felipe, because we're coming near the end, and I got a couple things I want to ask Deacon Stephen Greydonis. Maybe a movie that we haven't heard of, or maybe would have passed over, that you'd say, don't miss this, go see this movie.
Right. Thank you so much, because we have not yet talked about my favorite film of the year.
Okay.
Which is, and I have to say, I knew as soon as I saw it, almost from the beginning, that it was my favorite film, and nothing since then has called that into question. It is called The Rider, and it is by Chloe Zhao. This is a film set in the American West of today, and it's a world of cowboys and Indians. But these are not antagonists, and they're not even different people. These are Native Americans who are also cowboys. And it's about the real lives of the people who are playing the roles. So the main character, Brady, is played by a real Native American whose name is Brady, who really lives a life very much like the character he's playing. It's almost a kind of a quasi-documentary. And Brady has a disastrous accident in a rodeo. He is trampled by a bucking bronco and cracks his skull. And so that gives a shape to the story, which becomes about different kinds of brokenness and about Brady's struggles with feeling called by God to ride. And this is something now that the doctors are telling him that he can't do because it will threaten his life. So it explores Brady's faith and the hardships that he struggles and what he feels he's called to as a cowboy, as a Native American, as a Christian, as a man. And it is absolutely beautiful. It's shot in the Badlands of South Dakota on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. It has some of the most beautiful landscapes and skies that you will see in any film of 2018. And the Christian faith of Brady and his world is just a matter-of-fact part of the culture. It's part of the background. It's not a big deal, but it's very much there. And, the fact that for Brady, that his faith is something that really sees him through this crisis.
The movie is called The Rider?
The Rider.
The Rider. Okay, that is a must-see then. What a ringing endorsement. Cowboys and Indians, but they're the same people, and a story of brokenness and healing and Christian faith. Deacon Greydonis, thanks. I feel like this hour went way too fast, but thanks for doing it with us.
Thank you so much, Cy. It was great to be here.
You can find Deacon Greydonis' top films of 2018 at the National Catholic Register, so look there. Next hour, don't go away. It's coming. The Catholic Answers game show right after this with top secret guest, Jimmy Akin.
Hey everyone, Carlo Broussard here. Did you know that you can arrange for me and a host of other on-fire Catholic Answers speakers to speak at your conference or parish event? Here's how you do it. Go to CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com and you'll find all the information that you need to book me or our other great speakers. That's CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com. We look forward to seeing you.
If only evangelization was easy. But the truth of the matter is that most of the time, it's not. Talking about the Catholic faith is enough of a challenge even before dealing with the roadblocks that keep people from listening with an open mind. Apologist Carlo Broussard recognized that as he wrote Prepare the Way, a guide to step-by-step strategies that readers can use to break down those barriers to the very existence of God and religious truth, barriers to basic Christian beliefs, and barriers to the distinctive teachings and claims of the Catholic Church. Don't let obstacles get in your way. Learn how to overcome them. Order your copy of Prepare the Way today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers is a media ministry that serves Christ by explaining and defending the Catholic faith. We help Catholics grow in their faith, we bring former Catholics home, and we lead non-Catholics into the fullness of the truth. Our goal is to be the most trusted and accessible source for sharing, explaining, and defending the Catholic faith through as many media as possible, from personal contact to the most innovative means of mass communication. Have questions? We've got answers. Catholic Answers. Visit us today at Catholic.com or call us with your questions at 619-387-7200.
Is the Church wrong on contraception? In a culture that worships the pursuit of sexual pleasure, the Catholic Church's teaching on contraception can seem archaic and unintelligible. Its critics say it's outdated, theologically unfounded, and even harmful. And even faithful Catholics can have difficulty explaining this moral teaching. Catholic Answers is out to change all of that. That's why we've just released Trent Horn's dynamic new DVD, The Case Against Contraception. Using scripture, papal and magisterial teachings, natural law, and new insights provided by social science and medicine, Trent puts forward a compelling case for Catholic teachings with his trademark charity and persuasive graciousness. Be prepared to give a defense. Order your copy of The Case Against Contraception today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
With the recent commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the release of Humani Vitae, there have been fresh attacks on Catholic teaching from outside and, unfortunately, inside the Church. That's why Catholic Answers thought it critical to provide a vigorous affirmation of Pope Paul VI's prophetic wisdom with our newest book, Inseparable: 5 Perspectives on Sex, Life, and Love in Defense of Humani Vitae. We asked 5 distinguished contributors to reflect on and defend Humani Vitae from 5 perspectives, each of them compelling, together forming a mosaic of truth. Don't be caught uninformed when the topic comes up among friends, family, and coworkers. Order your copy of Inseparable today by calling 1-888-291-8000 or by visiting the shop at Catholic.com.
So, you're listening to Catholic Radio. I think it's safe to say that you probably want to become like Jesus. Theosis is a fancy word used to explain the process of becoming like Christ. It's how God takes sinners like you and me and transforms us into who we were created to be. Basically, rockin' saints. Clumsy Theosis is a podcast where I take 2,000 years of Catholic goodness, draw from the great minds and spiritual masters of the Church, boil it down, distill it, and give practical advice to 21st century Christians. Basically, we'll learn how to do this Catholic thing like a boss. Subscribe to Clumsy Theosis wherever good podcasts are found.
Wait a minute. That's not the usual Catholic Answers music. That's the game show music. Must be time for the Catholic Answers quiz show. I am Cy Kellett, your game show host for this hour, joined in studio by our super secret celebrity guest. He is the man with his own mysterious world, Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you for coming in and being our super secret celebrity guest.
So I would challenge the idea that I'm a celebrity, but on the supposition that I am, one of the most popular shows in England right now is called I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. So would that entitle me to be extracted from this situation?
You have one lifeline.
Okay.
You can only use it in the last 60 seconds of the show.
Okay.
And then you can leave at that point.
I may do that. We'll see.
No, you please. The game show is a contest between two great minds who have gotten in touch with us. And it actually has been pretty much two great minds every time. They've gotten in touch with us because they're Radio Club members, and we send out a call for contestants via the Radio Club.
Great minds.
They
joined the Radio Club. Yeah.
Right?
Had to be smart enough to join it.
And you too should join Radio Club. You join Radio Club just by going to CatholicAnswersLive.com, CatholicAnswersLive.com, and then you'll find a spot where you can give us your email address, and then you're a member of Radio Club, and then we just give you stuff.
Show how smart you are.
Yeah, show how smart you are. And on occasion, we have all kinds of cool stuff like special interviews that I'll do with Jimmy, for example, and so all kinds of opportunities to, in addition to already being a brilliant person who signed up for Radio Club, becoming even more brillianter. Is that the way you say that?
One can. I have known it done.
Are you prepared to meet our contestants today?
Virtually, yes.
Both are gentlemen of the South. On line one, we have contestant one. Chris, are you there with us?
I'm here.
All right, Chris, where are you and what's interesting about you?
I am in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm a Catholic school teacher, and I'm currently on an Acts retreat, so please pray for the men that are going through the retreat this weekend.
Oh, all right, an Acts retreat. What a lovely city you have down there, and a very fine red brick cathedral, if I remember right. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Lake Charles, Louisiana. Did you want to say hello to Chris, or did you already say hello to Chris?
Hello, Chris. I've also been down to Lake Charles.
You're
come back.
Yeah. Right. You should come back. But you're a Southern gentleman yourself.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
a man of the South.
Yeah, I was born in Texas and raised in Arkansas.
And where do you hang your hat?
I hang my hat in Santee.
Okay, fair enough. On line two is contestant number 2, and that is John. Hi, John. Where are you, and what's interesting about you?
Well, I'm in Houston, Texas. I've been married to my lovely wife for 25 years. I've got 4 lovely children, and I have a pet lovebird that's sometimes not so lovely.
Oh. Wait, what is a lovebird?
It's his pet, he said.
I get that, but is it one of those talking type birds, or?
Yeah, it's related to a parrot. It's a quite a beautiful tropical kind of bird.
Mm-hmm. Oh, how cool! We have parrots that live in my town, like a big flock of parrots.
Oh,
yeah. They don't like dogs, parrots. Okay, John. So you two could practically throw a rock and hit each other's houses if one of you's in Lake Charles. No, don't do it. But one of you's in Lake Charles, one of you's in Houston. So we're playing for. Then I'm going to declare it. We're playing for the championship of the South today.
Okay,
I've declared it now.
Okay. Do I get to say hello to John too?
Oh, I apologize, Jimmy. Would you please say hello to John?
Howdy, John.
Hi.
I also have been in Houston many times because I have relatives there. My mom grew up there.
Do you know John?
Oh, that's great.
That would be a disqualifier.
Not personally.
We'd have to get rid of John. Okay, well, Chris and John, you've probably listened with great anticipation every time we've had the game show. But I'm going to go through the rules for on the slight chance that there might be someone listening who doesn't know the rules,
just to keep us down.
Well, the primary rule is the host can make up any rule he wants in the course of the game. That is an actual rule. It's written into the rules. But the game works like this. It's a game in 3 rounds. In the first 2 rounds, you compete against one another, and the winner of those 2 rounds together moves on to the 3rd round, which we call
Final judgment.
Thank you, Jimmy. So you will...
Didn't want to step on your line.
No, that's okay. I appreciate that. So you'll go to final judgment, and if you are the winner of the first 2 rounds, if you are not the winner of the first 2 rounds, you will get a fantastic prize, and we have a really, really good prize for that person today.
And what do they win, Si?
Thank you, Jimmy. They win a 1-year subscription to Catholic Answers Magazine. They get Catholic Answers Magazine delivered to their home or the home of a loved one for free for a full year.
Nice.
But wait.
There's more.
There's more.
Oh, what else do they get?
I don't know. I feel like we should give them 2 years. Nick, what do you think? Ask assistant producer Marie. We'll come back to you in a second when I get through with the rules. See if assistant producer Marie or Darren, the director of the department, who we call El Capo, will approve 2 years of getting the Catholic Answers Magazine free. So the way it works, each of the first 2 rounds, you will each get 3 multiple choice questions. So contestant 1 will get 3 multiple choice questions in round 1 and 3 in round 2, and the same for contestant number 2. At the end of those 2 rounds, we will add up the points. You get 1 point for a correct answer, 0 for a wrong answer. We'll add up the points. We'll see who's ahead, and the one who's ahead moves on to the final judgment, and the one who is not ahead receives I've received approval from the highest authorities here at Catholic Answers. It has come through over the wire. I can give 2 years free subscription to the person who is eliminated after rounds 1 and 2. But, Jimmy, you ask, what if there's a tie?
But what if there's a tie?
Nice job on your line, Jimmy. Then we go to these 2 boxes, A or B, and because Chris was picked first and he is contestant number 1, he will pick either box A or B, and it will say congratulations, or it'll say sorry, and then that will be Chris's fate. Are the rules?
The way we have these boxes arranged for the cameras, it says ba.
I don't know why that is funny to me to put B in front of A, but I find these dumb little things funny, so I do it. It drives the internet crazy.
If it was the other way, if it was ab, it would be the Hebrew word for father. But since it's
I'll do
ba,
that.
but since it's ba, it's the enclitic in Latin that indicates the future tense.
That's what I was going for. I just didn't know if anyone would get it.
Okay.
Because my Latin is very enclitic.
Okay.
Chris and John, those rules seem fair to you and they seem clear to you?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. It seemed like they both consulted with their lawyers before they answered there.
And they would be wise to do so. I mean, dealing with a couple of people like us.
Yes, indeed.
All of our
Keep
nonsense.
your lawyer next to you. Yeah. Okay, so here's the deal, though. You also get 2 lifelines. If at any point during round 1 or 2 you feel stumped, you can ask Jimmy to either lifeline 1, eliminate one of the wrong answers. So you'll be left with a 50-50 choice. Or you can use the lifeline, which is...
Which is not number 1.
Which is not number 1. All right. So I'm struggling a little bit there with the rules. You can use the other lifeline, which is Jimmy will just give you the correct answer.
But
it will be in Pig Latin. So you will have to decipher.
Not actual Latin.
Not actual Latin?
Despite the
Pig
use
Latin.
of the enclitic here on our desk.
Right. All I ask is if you get to the end of round 2 and you have not used the Pig Latin one, use it because I want to hear Jimmy do Pig Latin. Everybody okay?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, here we go. Round 1. Contestant 1, that is you, Chris. Question number 1. Chris, the hypostatic union is A, the union of the 3 persons of the Trinity. B, the union of divine and human natures in the single person of Jesus. Or C, the union of symbol and reality in the sacraments.
And for people who are playing along at home, you want to read those again?
The hypostatic union is A, the union of the 3 persons of the Trinity. B, the union of divine and human natures in the single person of Jesus. Or C, the union of symbol and reality in the sacraments. Chris?
I'm going to say B.
I didn't hear it.
You said B.
Oh, B. Okay. I don't know why I didn't hear that one. I wish we had some cheering for that. That would be awesome because that is correct. B.
Oh, there we go. Crowd showed up late.
We have a dull crowd today. Contestant number 2, John, your first question. John, purgatory is A, the same as the punishment of the damned, only temporary. B, entirely different than the punishment of the damned. C, a final chance at salvation for those who died outside of the friendship of God. Which one is purgatory? The same as punishment of the damned, only temporary, entirely different than the punishment of the damned, or a final chance at salvation for those who died outside the friendship of God?
Wow. It's early in the game, but I think I need to use a lifeline.
Okay, which one would you like to use?
I'm going to ask you, Jimmy, to eliminate one of the answers, please.
Okay, the answer is not the same as the punishment of the damned, only temporary.
So do you know your two choices?
That would leave us with entirely different than the punishment of the damned, or a second chance, a final chance at salvation for those who have died out of friendship with God.
I will say A.
The first one?
Yeah, of those two.
Entirely different than the punishment of the damned is correct.
Right. That was actually B, but we had eliminated A. So you got it.
We deduced it.
Right.
Thank you.
And we've never run across that situation before, so we're just giving it to you. But we knew what you meant. As a matter of fact, that's now a rule. If we know what you mean, we're just going to give it to you.
Yeah. That would be a good thing to do.
We've been joined by we're going to take a break from the game show for just a quick second because we've been joined in studio by an important
And now this
personage.
message from our sponsor.
And now this message from the man who is moving towards the microphone. Most of the questions in this edition of the Catholic Answers Quiz Show are either inspired by or come directly from the current issue of Catholic Answers magazine, the A to Z of apologetics, explanations of key faith topics for every letter of the alphabet. And the editor of Catholic Answers magazine now joins us, Tim Ryland. Hi, Tim.
How are you guys?
Very, very well. We used the extraordinary powers vested in us to give away, or to promise to give away, a 2-year subscription to Catholic Answers magazine to one of the contestants.
Originally, it was one, but we altered the deal.
What?
We do not alter.
Is that going to bankrupt your department?
Oh man, there go all the extra issues.
They're very fine people.
Okay.
So okay, okay, I'll go along.
Sure, why not?
Tim, part of why we wanted to give it away is it's one of the best Catholic magazines in the world.
Thank you. We think so.
Yeah. And what's coming up next? What will you get at the next time? Do you get to tell us or no? Are you allowed
to say? He gets
say?
to tell us. He makes the rules on that.
Oh, okay. All right. Got anything interesting in the upcoming issue?
Oddly enough, we do.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by that. Will there be any articles by Jimmy Akin?
It better be something interesting in the next issue.
Well, we've been through the A through Z, so the next issue is just going to be...
It's going to be numbers?
48 pages that say this page left intentionally blank. We've just got nothing else.
Oh, not again.
It'll also have A to Z in it. In fact, many times it'll have A to Z, but they won't all be in that order.
I gotcha.
They'll be in
what can we look
words.
forward to coming up?
Bulletproof Apologetics.
Really?
Isn't that a great title?
That is a great title. That's what I want to be able to do. Bulletproof Apologetics.
Right.
The subtitle is How to Make Your Best Case and Avoid Shooting Yourself in the Foot.
Very good. So that should be a book.
Said by the author himself.
The author is Jimmy Akin.
That's right, of course.
I'm sorry, Jimmy, but that's a book title right there.
It really is.
Thank you.
Make that a book.
No, when he pitched it to me, I said, oh my goodness, that's a great title.
Yeah,
So I'm not going to change that.
That is a good title.
The idea is expressed in the subtitle. It's a series of techniques that I've developed over the years that precisely how to make your case in a really good way
and how not to.
And avoid sabotaging yourself.
Very good.
And these are pieces of advice I often give up-and-coming apologists, especially when they ask me to evaluate their work and suggest ways to improve it.
Very good. How do I get Catholic Answers magazine? Tim Ryland, editor of Catholic Answers magazine.
I listen to you telling me how to get it all the time on the air, but
I think he's implying you know.
I'm asking in the host sense, not in a personal sense. I actually already get the magazine.
Yeah.
But
it shows up in your mailbox
for free. The many easy ways, Catholic.com/magazine, CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. Those are the two main ones for me.
Or call Tim at home. His phone number is... No, we'll just go to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com. CatholicAnswersMagazine.com.
There you go. That's the easiest.
And you can get a year, a 2-year, you probably can't get a 10-year subscription. I don't know, but you can.
No, maybe you can get 5 2-years. I don't know.
5 2-year subscriptions.
You could just keep bringing it in, and we'll just extend it.
Fair enough. Tim Ryland, editor of Catholic Answers magazine. We got an email from your mom the other day saying that she thinks the magazine is great. She just thinks you need a better editor. Did you know? That's not a joke.
That email was sent by Tim himself in persona.
Come on, Tim. I thought that was your mom.
Quit giving away my secrets.
We'll be right back to finish up the game show right after this.
Your number one source for Catholic apologetics and evangelization. Catholic Answers Live.
Divine Intimacy Radio.
When you engage with the wisdom of saints this way, it stokes the fires of God in our hearts, encourages us, strengthens us, and gives us wisdom to deal with the difficulties of life. It also gives us wisdom that allows us to rise above all of the junk, to live with joy and peace in the midst of even the most difficult circumstances.
Divine Intimacy Radio, Sunday, 6:30 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 11 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Do you love sharing the gospel and want to learn to be more effective? Join the St. Paul Street Evangelization Online School of Evangelization. You will learn to build bridges of trust and make disciples by befriending strangers, proclaiming the gospel, inviting people to the church, and praying with others. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you are unable to give, we'll give you a membership at no cost. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Oh, yeah. That's the Catholic Answers game show music. We are right in the middle of the Catholic Answers game show. Chris from Lake Charles, Louisiana is contestant number 1. Contestant number 2 is John from Houston, Texas. Our super secret celebrity guest is Jimmy Akin. And we are still in round 1, and we have only used one lifeline among the contestants today. So contestant number 1, Chris, we are back to you. Your second question of round 1. The church teaches that original sin, A, involves the absence of God's sanctifying grace in the soul. B, makes every child guilty of personal sin at the moment of birth. C, is essentially the same as personal sin, but shared by everyone.
I'm going to say A.
Wow, we didn't even get to play the music. You were so fast.
Original
on that.
sin does involve the absence of God's sanctifying grace from the soul. In fact, the classic definition is it's the deprivation of sanctifying grace from the soul. Deprivation meaning something you don't have but you need.
Who took it? I need
it wasn't so much taken as chucked away on our behalf.
Thrown away by our first mother
parents,
and father.
Yeah.
All right, John, your second question of round 1. The church teaches that the resurrection of Jesus is A, something that happens outside of history on a purely spiritual level. B, a fact of history. C, a transformation of Jesus' body into a living spirit.
That would be B.
A fact of history is correct. Yeah, absolutely. You will find some theologians who will say things like it's a kind of meta-historical event.
Yeah.
But what they mean by that is unclear and deliberately so. But no, it's a fact of history.
And by the way, I don't think I mentioned, but if either of you needs a reread on a question, just let me know. All right. If I think you've got it, I'll just let it be. But if you want to reread, just let me know. Contestant number 1, Chris, your final question of round 1. The church teaches that personal sin, A, is always deadly to the soul. B, is not as bad as mortal sin. Or C, is only sometimes deadly to the soul.
I'm going to say C.
C is only sometimes deadly to the soul is correct. Personal sin can include both venial and mortal sin, and if it's the latter, if it's mortal sin, then it is deadly to the soul. But since it can include venial sin, that means only sometimes.
All right, I approve of you as a Catholic school teacher now, Chris, because you just killed it in the first round.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You have my seal of approval. Contestant number 2, John. Sacraments are A, causes of grace, B, visible signs of grace, or C, both.
C, both.
Both is correct.
Man.
Yeah.
Killing it.
They are visible signs that convey the grace they signify.
So they actually cause the grace to happen, like baptism actually.
Well, not in the magical sense,
No,
but they are means of grace.
Yeah,
that means that God uses to give us His grace.
Not just symbols.
Yeah.
All right. Assistant producer Marie, where are we now? What's the score?
3-3.
Oh, that's the score right there.
Yeah.
The one that you
It's
have
on
right
the-
in front of
on
me.
the screen in front of
Okay,
you.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Good. I thought that was their ages. I thought Chris and John were each 3. I don't know what I
That
was
would be
thinking.
very
That
impressive.
would be very impressive, especially given the depth.
It
of the
also
voices.
would be alarming at the rate they're aging because they've like gained 2 years in the last 15 minutes.
All right, so after round 1, we are all tied 3-3. That is perfection, gentlemen. We move now to round 2. Any lifelines you have left, you may still use, and Marie is keeping track of that because, as you can see, I can't keep track of nothing. Contestant number 1, Chris, your first question of round 2. Who is a member of the Communion of Saints? A, every canonized saint. B, all of the faithful, living or dead. Or C, every soul in heaven, whether canonized or not.
Can you repeat the answers, please?
Sure, I'll do the whole thing. Who is a member of the Communion of Saints? A, every canonized saint. B, all of the faithful, living or dead. Or C, every soul in heaven, whether canonized or not.
Can you take away one of the wrong answers?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will take away the answer, every soul in heaven, whether canonized or not. That leaves us with A, the communion of saints is every canonized saint, or B, the communion of saints is all of the faithful, living or dead.
I'm going to say B.
B is correct, yes. That's why it's in the Creed. It's not just a reference to the saints in heaven. It's a reference to all of the saints, including those who are still alive and whose sanctification or sanctification is still in process, like us.
All right, so we're all members of the Communion of Saints.
That's what the Catechism of the Catholic Church says.
I like it.
In this passage you used as the basis for this question.
That is a club I'm happy to belong to. Contestant number 2, John, your question, question number 1 for round 2. Catholic teaching commonly makes a distinction between 2 types of grace. Catholic teaching commonly makes a distinction between 2 types of grace. A, actual and sanctifying. B, potential and actual. Or C, angelic and human. Are you there with us, Jim?
A. Okay. The answer A is correct. The Catholic teaching commonly makes a distinction between actual and sanctifying grace.
That was very impressive. What did you do? Meditate there for a minute?
He communicated the information telepathically, but Nick was psychic enough to pick up on it and turn up his volume.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is that what happened? Oh, okay. Oh, nice job, Nick. All right. Well, we march forward. I think everybody's still perfect. So we go to question 2 of round 2, and that is for you, Chris. According to the Church, when Jesus said, "This is my body," he meant A, the bread was a figurative representation of his body. B, the bread was a sign of membership in his spiritual body. C, it was now his actual living flesh.
I'm going to say C.
C is correct, his actual living flesh. One thing that some people might wonder about that question is, would it be his dead flesh on the cross? But actually, when you look, for example, at the Credo of the People of God that was published by Paul VI in 1968, he clarified that the Eucharist is the living flesh of Christ in heaven. And so it's not like a time warp specifically to the cross, and that's it. The broader reality of Christ in his living flesh is present.
All right. I still approve of you as a Catholic school teacher. John, we go to you. Your second question of round 2 then. The sacraments of the Orthodox churches. The sacraments of the Orthodox churches are A, valid for Catholics in a time of emergency. B, invalid. C, valid because Orthodox bishops are real successors to the apostles.
I think the answer is A.
I'm afraid not. They are licit for Catholics in a time of emergency and in other times as well. It doesn't have to be an emergency, but they are valid because the Orthodox bishops do participate in apostolic succession, and so the sacraments that they and the priests they ordain administer are valid.
All righty, John. Oh, is that music mean we have to take a quick break?
Yep, that's the
right.
hard quick
We'll
break.
be right back to finish round 2 of Catholic Answers game show right after this.
Catholic Answers Live.
Author Mark McNeil spent years in the Oneness Pentecostal movement, praying in its lively services, zealously spreading its unconventional teachings, and rejecting mainstream Christianity as misguided. Then he left it all behind. All in the Name is the story of a man who believed he was among an elite group of believers who followed the true faith when so many others had strayed. But an inquisitive mind, careful study, and the action of the Holy Spirit finally led Mark out of Oneness Pentecostalism and into the Catholic Church. This is an inspiring conversion story you won't want to miss. It's a faith strengthener for Catholics and an intriguing challenge to those who deny the doctrine of the Trinity. Order your copy of All in the Name today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Is the church wrong on contraception? In a culture that worships the pursuit of sexual pleasure, the Catholic Church's teaching on contraception can seem archaic and unintelligible. Its critics say it's outdated, theologically unfounded, and even harmful. And even faithful Catholics can have difficulty explaining this moral teaching. Catholic Answers is out to change all of that. That's why we've just released Trent Horn's dynamic new DVD, The Case Against Contraception. Using scripture, papal and magisterial teachings, natural law, and new insights provided by social science and medicine, Trent puts forward a compelling case for Catholic teachings with his trademark charity and persuasive graciousness. Be prepared to give a defense. Order your copy of The Case Against Contraception today by calling 1-888-291-8000, logging on to the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
I'm Gloria Purvis.
And I'm Deacon Harold Burke Sivers. The Morning Glory team talks about the pro-life legacy of Martin Luther King.
Monday morning, 7 Eastern. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
I recorded my teases to play in Morning Glory next week with Gloria and Deacon Harold, so they're going to get some surprises next week. I put some little nuggets in there. But even though Gloria didn't say hi to me the second half of this week, I've got some stuff in there for him. You're listening to the Catholic Answers game show. It is Friday. We're having fun. Contestant number 1 is Chris from Louisiana. Contestant number 2 is John from Texas. And our super secret celebrity guest is Jimmy from Texas and Arkansas and Southern California. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy. Only I'm from Texas and Arkansas. I just live in Southern California.
Oh, I can't tell. Is that a kind of diss to Southern California?
No, it's just an expression of where I'm from.
I got you. Okay. All right.
Do you want me to diss Southern California?
No, I don't. I love Southern California. Southern California is my home.
Said Cy from Boston.
I love Boston, too. It's just harder to drive in Boston. Okay, well, I can't remember where we were. So are we on question number 3, I think, round 2 for contestant 1. Question number 3 for you, Chris, in Louisiana, is this. A lot of grace questions today. Actual grace is, all right, the question is, actual grace is A, the grace of God given only through the sacraments. B, a supernatural help from God for a person to do a particular good. Or C, the state of the soul in friendship with God. Chris?
I'm going to need to hear that in Pig Latin.
Yes, Chris. Thank you.
Actual grace is a upernatural se elp he umfre adge orfe a ursenpe ute ude a articular pe ud gay.
Okay, that was fun. Thank you for picking that one. I appreciate it, Chris. Do you know the answer, or was that
I'm thinking it's B.
B, a supernatural help from God for a person to do a particular good, is correct.
So could I get like say I were not a baptized person, could I get an actual grace from God if I'm not baptized?
You not only could, you will, and because God gives everyone the possibility of salvation in some way, and if you are not yet baptized, that means He's going to give you the grace needed to repent and believe in Him and be saved and so forth.
Ah, okay. Yeah, otherwise how am I going to
Yeah, because God has to take the first initiative, because no man comes to Jesus unless the Father draws him, and that actual grace is part of the drawing.
Fair enough. All right, your final question, John. John, sanctifying grace is A, the grace of God given only through the sacraments. B, the grace given by God to those who do not know Christ. Or C, the gift of God within the soul of the saved. That's a lot of theology there. Do you want me to read it again?
Well, I think I'd like to hear it in Pig Latin.
Okay. Sanctifying grace is eithe erminate pe iftge ovge adge ithinwe ethe olse foe ethe avse.
It's just a sigh of exhaustion halfway through.
No, it's just the little two-letter prepositions that are hard to turn into Pig Latin.
Okay, did that give you any help at all, John? What do you think?
I think it does, but could you read the answers or the questions again?
Sure.
The choices again.
Yeah, sanctifying grace is A, the grace of God given only through the sacraments. B, the grace of God, the grace given by God to those who do not know Christ. Or C, the gift of God within the soul of the saved. Aved say. Within the aved say.
C.
C is correct. Sanctifying grace is a gift of God within the soul of the saved. It's not only given through the sacraments, thus eliminating answer A, and it is not given specifically to those who do not know Christ. It may be given to them in mysterious ways, but it is ordinarily given to the saved, thus eliminating answer B.
So it seems to me, if I were to sum up, because we had actual grace and then we had sanctifying grace, it seems like one is like
one is a state, and one is more of an enduring state. That's sanctifying grace.
Okay,
and then
the other one's like a push
other
or
is
a
like a
prompt.
push or prompt. Yeah.
I got it. All right. That was a really fine first two rounds. How are you feeling, Chris and John? Do you feel it was fair? No,
you have 30 days to file an appeal.
Yeah, nobody wants to answer. All right, now that you've had time to consult with your lawyers, do you feel that those were fair 2 rounds?
I think so.
All right. They were hard questions.
They were hard questions, and both gentlemen performed very well.
Did the supercomputer crunch the numbers already, Jimmy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Supercomputer Marie did that. It's right on the screen in front of you. Chris is our winner of both rounds. He got 6 answers right. John came in very close to that, 5 answers right. So both gentlemen performed extraordinarily well.
Congratulations, Chris. John, do you know what your prize is?
I'm
I'd
guessing.
like to hear it again.
I'm guessing you can tell us, Si.
John, you are receiving 2 years subscription to Catholic Answers Magazine, one of the finest magazines in the world. Thank you very much, John, for playing.
Hey, my pleasure. Looking forward to the subscription. And Jimmy, I recently read your book, The Fathers Know Best. It was really great. So it was nice being able to meet both of you.
Thank you so much, and thank you,
John.
Thank you for playing, and thank you for your support of the Radio Club.
Oh, yes, the Radio Club. That's how John became a contestant. If you'd like to become a contestant, just sign up for Radio Club, and that's we send out a call. And then I think, Marie, do you still pull them out of a hat, or how do you do it, Marie? You actually pull them out of a hat? All right.
And we will, in the old days, I would pull, and when we did the game show, I would pull the questions out of my hat, literally here on the air, the hat of knowledge.
Oh.
Yeah. By the way, also, we're going to be sending John a copy of my new book, Teaching with Authority.
Oh, I didn't know that. Congratulations, John.
Yeah. See what you learn when you read the screen?
I'm supposed to read that screen. I'm not a multitasker, Jimmy.
Okay.
Not a multitasker. Okay, so Chris, you have reached your final judgment. Are you prepared for final judgment?
I hope so.
I hope so, too.
It's all about hope, final judgment.
There you go. Okay, so what will happen in final judgment now is you will get 7 true or false questions. If you get all 7 correct, you will receive $50 of the merchandise of your choice from shop.catholic.com. If you do not, okay, so say you only get 6 out of 7. Well, I'll tell you what, each question also has a prize attached to it. For every question that you get right, you will get the prize that comes attached to that question. Consult with your lawyers, see if you want to continue.
They said it was okay.
They said it was okay. All right. Your first true or false question. On question number 1, you are playing for a 1-year subscription to Catholic Answers Magazine, but now it's a 2-year subscription. True or false? All of these will be true or false questions, by the way. True or false? Concupiscence is a sin.
False.
False is correct. Concupiscence is not a sin. It is an inclination to sin. It's a fancy word for temptation.
All right. So you got the 2-year subscription to Catholic Answers Magazine coming your way. For the second question, you are playing for Jimmy's book, The Fathers Know Best. True or false, Chris? The Pope has the full and supreme power of jurisdiction over the universal church.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, true or false, Chris? The Pope has the full and supreme power of jurisdiction over the universal church.
I'm going to say true.
True is correct. Yes, he does have not only the power of teaching for the whole church, he also has the power of governing or the jurisdiction over the whole church.
Still just nailing it, Chris. Question number 3, true or false? Baptism gives sanctifying grace to the soul, but does not take away the inclination to sin.
True.
True is correct. Baptism does grant sanctifying grace, but it doesn't take away that concupiscence or temptation.
And I didn't tell him any prize that he was going to get. So I'm going to tell you now.
Oh, you better now.
The prize you got is my book of the year for 2018.
Insufferable?
Not Insufferable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's my life story.
Oh.
That's my autobiography I'm working on. Inseparable, 5 Perspectives on Sex, Life, and Love in Defense of Humanae Vitae. If it sounds like it's a book about contraception to you, it did to me too until I read it and I realized it was a book about being fully and truly human, especially in the modern context. We're delighted to send it to you. You know what we got to do? We got to take a quick break, though. Can you hang on in suspense and anxiety while we do a few things and then come back to finish up your final judgment?
I can.
All right. We'll be right back with more right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley of the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
We need EWTN Radio for the reason that Mother Angelica founded this entire enterprise. She always saw this as a spiritual growth network. It was to be an enterprise in media that reached people in all aspects of their life. She saw this as a holistic approach to reaching the whole person in the middle of the world and bringing them truth and life.
Raymond Arroyo thinks Catholic radio is important. So should you.
Catholic Answers Game Show. I'm Cy Kellett, your host. Chris has survived for the final judgment. He's undergoing his final judgment right now. As a matter of fact, Chris is a Catholic school teacher in Lake Charles, Louisiana. How about a pitch for your school there? What's your school, and what do they do there at the school you teach at?
Impart learning to children, I'm guessing?
Let him answer.
Yes, we teach children, strengthening spirits, minds, and bodies through the teachings of Jesus Christ.
There we go.
At Immaculate Cathedral School.
Immaculate Conception Cathedral School. So you're just on the edge of downtown Lake Charles.
Correct.
Very good. And how long you been there, Chris?
This is my 21st year.
Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations. All right. We continue now with your final judgment. Chris, true or false? Oh, and you're playing for this book, All in the Name, How the Bible Led Me to Faith in the Trinity and the Catholic Church. That is by Mark McNeil, and it's from Catholic Answers Press. And your question is, true or false, the church teaches that those who have been saved cannot lose their salvation?
False.
False is correct, but boy, wouldn't it be nice.
It would be nice. Is there any point where I will be secure? Like, it's done now?
Once you're dead.
Oh, once I'm dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you'll be secure, one way or the other.
Well, we hope one way and not the other.
We certainly do.
Chris, I don't think Chris has missed any. Has Chris missed any?
No,
man, I got to come up with something harder. Okay.
Don't jinx me, huh?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't want to do that.
These are pre-written, so don't worry. He's not going to bail on you and come up with something harder on the spot.
No. These are all pre-written. So, Chris, you're playing now for Jimmy's book, Teaching with Authority, How to Cut Through Doctrinal Confusion and Understand What the Church Really Says. Jimmy, true or false, Buddhism is more ancient than Christianity?
True.
True is correct. Siddhartha Gautama, also known as the Gautama Buddha, lived several centuries before the time of Christ. At that time, God's program of the ages was still in the phase that we call the period of the Old Testament. And so God had already begun working in the world, but the time for Jesus to incarnate and disclose the fullness of God's will had not yet arrived.
Chris, I'm getting nervous that you're going to get them all correct, and then we'll have to give you the $50 at shop.catholic.com. Is that a negative the way I said that, Jimmy? I feel like that might have.
Well, a little bit, maybe from a certain point of view.
It sounded like
up to a point, Lord Copper.
It sounded like I was rooting against him.
No.
And Chris, I am now rooting.
You meant I'm afraid in a good way.
Yes, I'm afraid we're going to have to part with $50 in a good way. True or false, Chris? This is number 6. Oh, by the way, you're playing for Carlo Broussard's book, Prepare the Way, Overcoming Obstacles to God, the Gospel, and the Church. True or false, Islam is more ancient than Christianity?
False.
False is correct. Islam is not more ancient than Christianity. Muhammad lived several centuries after the time of Christ, and if you read the Quran, it refers to things in the New Testament, which it couldn't do if it were more ancient.
All right, we have come now to the final moment of truth. You're playing for a daily defense, 365 days plus 1 to becoming a better apologist. Jimmy's book, which, by the way, is on sale 50% off at shop.catholic.com right now.
Just like your chances of guessing the answer to this next question randomly, 50%.
50% or 50% off.
Yeah. Do not blurt out an answer unless you're very sure about this next one. Think about it.
Wow, you got the warning. Are you ready, Chris? Are you nervous?
I'm ready.
All right, true or false, Chris? Christians invented monasticism.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, Chris, true or false? Christians invented monasticism.
Oh man, you're messing with me now.
Well, I suppose what that would mean in other words.
In other words, is monasticism more ancient than Christianity?
Yeah, were there monks before there was Christianity?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that would be one way of framing it.
I'm going to say Christians did not invent monasticism.
And you would be correct, because there were monasteries and monks prior to the time of Christ, and definitely in other religions, like in Buddhism, for example. So the Buddhism question was kind of a primer for this one to get you thinking about the history of Buddhism.
That's what helped me there.
Yeah. Also, depending on how you look at it, you could look at certain figures in the Old Testament as monks as well. There were people who took what was called the Nazirite vow, and there was a form of special personal consecration to God, either temporarily or in a lifelong fashion, like with the prophet Samuel. And the connection between this kind of consecration, which is different than priestly consecration to God, and monasticism is clear enough that in modern Hebrew, a Nazir is the modern Hebrew word for monk, and Nazirah is the modern Hebrew word for nun. So people who took the Nazirite vow and become a Nazir or a Nazirah were the monks and nuns up to a point, though they didn't necessarily live in community.
Right. Chris, I am really impressed. I thought this was a really hard quiz myself. I mean, we're asking detailed theological questions about the nature of grace and purgatory and sacraments and all that, and you just plowed through it like it was no problem. Apparently, there's some really good Catholic education down in Louisiana. Congratulations, Chris. You won all the prizes that we can give you. And the one that I was really trying hard not to let you get, the $50.
He means that in a good way.
He means that in a good way.
Well, they
Y'all
take it.
prepared me well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they take it out of my check, so that's the. So you enjoy my $50.
Yeah, they don't.
Chris, congratulations. Are you're on the Acts retreat now, or you're about to head to it?
I am on it now. I'm skipping dinner to hang out with y'all.
Oh,
well,
cool.
Thank you for skipping dinner, and God bless you and all. Is it men or are men and women together on the retreat? I can't remember.
It's 73 men.
Okay.
73 men. Praise God.
Have a blessed and spiritually profitable time.
Thank y'all so much.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks very much. Now, Jimmy, I don't know if you suggested this on the air. I can't remember, but you did say it to me that we should have a tournament of champions.
Yeah, like for people who scored really high, like maybe once we have several people who've gone all the way.
We have two now.
Yeah.
So
we could like have a death match.
Well, okay, yeah. Is there any kind of wording we could do about other than death match? Wow, I am so impressed. Like, do we have super smart Radio Club members or what? Well,
just being in Radio Club means you're smart, as we've already said.
But John, he only missed one. It was a hard one. That was a hard question that he missed on. So. A lot of conversation about grace.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, to prepare for this, I read a bit about grace, like in the Catholic Encyclopedia and stuff, to try to. It's a very subtle thing.
Yeah.
Like grace is not something where you just like, oh, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I think even Thomas Aquinas, or the people that are like,
yeah. He has extensive discussions of grace.
Right, but he, I think, is ultimately we're talking about something that, what is it? It's so mysterious that
whatever God does for you and is good, that's grace.
And what's the relationship between grace and thanks? Because I think of the word isn't gratia thanks?
Yeah, this is, and in many languages there are terms that have one root meaning that then get slid to include something else, and gratia is one of those terms. In Latin, it originally meant grace, but it's come to mean thanks. So, like in Spanish, gracias.
Oh, yeah.
Means thanks.
Right.
Similarly, in Greek, charis means grace, and a good grace would be eucharis.
Oh.
And that's where we get
I hear it. I can hear it.
Eucharist.
Yeah.
For the Eucharist, because
a good grace.
You began the meal by saying grace.
Ah, yeah. So when we say grace, what is that? That's
when saying grace means giving thanks.
Giving thanks
in a meal context.
Right. So these words are mixed up through the years. Yeah. Yeah.
That's also why we have a related phenomenon is why we have the word Mass in English, because it is related to the dismissal that occurs at the end of Mass.
Misa.
Yeah, you can hear the cognate nature of those words there.
Yeah. Another one that I thought that there was a little bit of struggle on was purgatory, because I don't know what you thought of the answers that I gave as choices, but the same as the punishment of the damned, only temporary. That really can't be the answer.
No, but there has been historically a group of people who would maintain that position. That essentially, what purgatory is, you get thrown into hell and then you burn off the consequences of your punishments, and then you get taken out. So you just don't get left there. So that actually is a theory that some people have maintained historically. But the Catechism, in the passage that I'm certain you based that answer on,
well, I actually took the words from
rejects it and says it's entirely different than the punishment of the damned. And that's why the Catechism is so emphatic, because unless someone had been saying it's the same, they wouldn't bother saying it's entirely different.
Yeah, I see. And the one that I think most Catholics who are catechized nowadays know, because I do think this forms a kind of ongoing argument or conversation with many of our Protestant brothers and sisters, a final chance at salvation for those who died outside the friendship of God. Dying outside the friendship of God is very, very bad.
Another common misunderstanding of what purgatory is, where some people think it's a kind of second chance, but that's not indicated. That's not what the teaching is. Your fate is already sealed.
So let me ask you a question. Then we also had a couple questions in this one on the communion of saints.
Okay.
And so in connection with this purgatory question, the people in purgatory are also members.
They're also saints, yeah.
Okay, so they're members of the communion of saints.
Right. Everybody it's even, there are different ways of being sanctified. And every Christian is in some way sanctified. And so even people who are not in a state of grace are still members of the communion of saints in at least a tenuous way. But the more ways in which you're sanctified, the more sainted you are, and thus the more intense your participation in the communion of saints is. And since those who are in purgatory, even though they're being purified, their salvation is secure, and they're not sinning anymore in purgatory. So they've already been sanctified in ways that we here on earth are not. So their participation in the communion of saints, in a sense, is even stronger than ours.
So do you think of the people in purgatory as joyful or sorrowful?
I tend to think of it as sort of both. And this is something that kind of goes back even before I was Catholic. There's a certain human intuition that that when we've done something wrong, we need to mourn it. But oftentimes in this life, we don't have time to properly mourn things. And even before I had the conceptual apparatus to articulate it in Catholic terms, I had an intuition that once I've died, I'll be able to properly mourn all of the things I've done wrong, and that will be a kind of joyful release. So
the sorrow is the fact you are actually mourning things that were bad.
Yeah,
but the joy is
joy.
You're letting it
you're
go.
Processing it. Yeah. You're letting it go, and so forth. Like when my wife died, it just felt good to cry.
Yeah, but maybe
something similar.
Purgatory in some ways is a good cry.
Yeah.
A good spiritual cry. Jimmy Akins, our super secret celebrity guest, thanks very much for being with us here for this
I'm a
hour.
celebrity, so get me out of here.
All right. Thanks to everybody for joining us for the Catholic Answers Game Show. Once again, if you want to join the Radio Club, and we really would love to have you join the Radio Club, we just give you stuff. We try not to ask you for anything. As a matter of fact, I don't think we do. Just go to CatholicAnswersLive.com. Find the spot where you can give us your email address, and you'll get the email each week, sometimes with really cool stuff attached. We'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Live. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations.